it does follow the money supply. So the money supply expands. Bitcoin follows it. It trails it by about 8 to 12 weeks. So it catches up to it, and you can see, how that correlation is.
The global M2 officially reaches a new all-time high. Bitcoin tends to follow along. And just to cue everybody in, what is the M2? M2 is a broader measure of money supply that encompasses M1, which is travelers' checks and cash checking accounts, basic money within the system, plus savings deposits, money market funds, and other readily available but not readily spendable assets. And the money supply is increasing. So how does this impact Bitcoin? Well, Bitcoin has roughly an 82% correlation with the M2, and also lags by 10 weeks. 8 to 12 weeks, we see that in the data throughout history. And while it's not a perfect correlation, why only 82%? Why 95%? Well, because some big crypto-specific events over history tends to drag the correlation off either to the positive or the. So we have the Bitcoin price in white since 2014, and the M2 supply in pink since 2014. And keep in mind, there's approximately a 10-week lag. So the money supply pops first, and then Bitcoin tends to follow approximately 10-ish weeks later. Many macro investing gurus concur. Global M2 is a suitable proxy for global liquidity. So numbers rise. But again, normally speaking, Bitcoin has an 82% correlation to the M2 naturally when FTX was imploding towards the end of 2022. It does not matter what the M2 was doing. It was a crypto-related event which drove Bitcoin down just like towards the start and the run up to the start of 2024, when the Bitcoin ETFs launched for the first time. It didn't really matter what the M2 is doing, because the Bitcoin ETFs impacted Bitcoin to the upside. So it goes both ways, and this is where we are today, while Bitcoin's price is flatlining around the low $80,000 range. The M2 just hit an all-time high. And why is the M2 popping off, particularly with Donald Trump tariffs and other macro events that appear bearish? Why is M2 thriving? Well, the US money supply growth is gaining speed. The M2 money supply increased 3.9% year over year in January, the accelerating pace in 30 months. This is the 11th consecutive month of money supply growth, and the value of US dollars in circulation stands at 21.6 trillion, just 16 billion shy of an all-time high reached in April of 2022. Meanwhile, the global money supply has increased by about $2 trillion over the past 2 months, to its highest since September of 2024. And what it all amounts to for you is the money supply in the US is growing. Again, the other thing that folks get very baffled about is they're like,
the other thing that people get very confused about is they're like, well, what happens if the Fed don't cut much more? I don't care. What happens if rates don't go down a lot? I don't care. What happens if they don't drain the Treasury General account? I don't care.
The M2 is so far more than the US. It's worldwide. Raoul Pal says, you've got to see
the global picture is the big picture. And the global picture, like 2017, will most likely be driven by China. I think the US will stimulate, but China is the big one. Chinese bond yields are now at 1% or somewhere close to it. They have run out of runway.
And we're witnessing China begin to expand their money supply, meaning whereas the US is pumping, thus far, $560 billion. Germany has put in more than $500 billion stimulus and China injecting $300 billion into banks. This is the same setup which created the bull run of 2021, and comprehend what this indicates. The Bitcoin to $100,000 by May worldwide. M2 money supply has risen substantially, while Bitcoin has endured an overbearing sell-off. If this correlation holds based on these conditions, it's predicted that BTC will return to $100,000 by May. The blast-off date will be about April 30th, and then where M2 is now somewhere between 98,000 Bitcoin to 16,000 Bitcoin. And that's just by May. Where could Bitcoin be by end of year? Even with the global Trump potential trade war crypto expert, Arthur Hayes says,
a lot of fear on the timeline. Markets aren't doing well. So again, just where do you think we are? Are we still in a bull cycle? Are we near the end?
I absolutely still believe we're in a bull cycle. Obviously, the bull cycle has been a lot more concentrated in Bitcoin. versus a lot of the other altcoin sphere.
And by the way, this channel is named Altcoin Chronicle. So even though Bitcoin is the short-term market mover, I want to continue adding. Your arsenal of tools you can utilize to discover the next hidden gem. Altcoin Gecko Terminal from the creators of CoinGecko is an excellent option. I have no connection to them, but it's merely a platform that's free to use that monitors DEX blockchain data.
Most of the 100x's I found because I follow one simple rule, and that is volume trading.
Meaning, if you're a volume trader, you can observe which low market cap coins are performing the best in volume. You can break it by various blockchains. If you want to concentrate on Solana coins or base blockchain coins. And news today is this cookie collaborates with CoinGecko. Just a reminder. Cookie DAO is a modular data layer for the AI-fueled reality. So this is your data center to keep an eye on the next big AI agent or AI altcoin. And the news today is Cookie. Real-time funds, social AI agent analytics are now live on Gecko Terminal. And this provides Cookie DA with visibility to 3.5 million plus monthly Gecko coin users. So this will introduce a whole lot more users to Cookie Day. And this represents the first time that CoinGecko has rolled out social metrics such as this. A huge step in bringing Cookie towards becoming a data standard in the industry and what it means to you. If you're utilizing data centers such as Coin Terminal, yes, you already possessed the DEX blockchain data, meaning transactions, meaning volume, meaning chain rankings. We have social data driven by Cookie to provide us with insight into mindshare gainers, meaning which undervalued low cap market cap coin has the most mindshare on social media. I mean, we've discussed Cookie Day before. They're a platform in their own right that provides you with really fascinating social data on blockchains, for instance. Top 4 AI projects currently with the largest market cap and mindshare correlation. Mindshare once again, what coin is receiving the most? Mindshare discussing most on the socials. They're now part of Gecko Terminal mindshare gainers right here. So good for the long-term potential of Cookie and good for you as another free tool Gecko Terminal for your arsenal. When you're monitoring data to discover the next up-and-coming altcoin, will Donald Trump create a recession? And of course, I posted a video yesterday discussing ultimate Bitcoin crash about to unfold. Essentially, this was just torn apart, how far Donald Trump could take his global trade war. And even with this, why does crypto commentator Arthur Hayes still believe Bitcoin is headed much higher by year's end?
Are we near the end?
I absolutely still believe we're in a bull cycle. Obviously, the bull cycle has been a lot more concentrated in Bitcoin versus a lot of the other altcoin sphere. And at the end of the day, right now, we are experiencing a lull in liquidity fiat money generation. In the United States, obviously, I believe that Trump investors are consciously trying to cause a recession, or at least the appearance of a recession, so that the Federal Reserve becomes on their side and lowers the price of money and increases the quantity of money. And also, if you think about it, right, regardless of whether you think, the political side of things, if there's a lot of fraudulent payments within the system and you want to get rid of those before you move higher, you can clean up the dead weight. And obviously that's going to have an economic impact. They're okay with it because they're doing it in the beginning of their administration versus, in 2026, before the elections. Oh no, let's go reform the entire government. The voting population is going to be very skeptical of that and say, oh, that's Trump's fault. That's Vessen's fault. That's Elon's fault versus there's probably a way that they can spin this as this is Biden's fault. This is the Democrats' fault. Again, whether or not you believe that doesn't really matter, but the markets, they're cleaning out the dead wood and then they're going to reflate. And they're going to print more money than probably anyone's ever printed before.
So what Arthur Hayes is saying. And by the way, we talked about something very similar in yesterday's video, that Donald Trump is willing to do the trade war and take it as far as he has to slow growth in the short term, to send a message to Jerome Friend and the Fed to reduce rates so they can refinance on the US government's debt and attempt and tackle this mountainous United States debt in the start of his term, as opposed to at the end. But the United States will, Europe, China, Japan, to print money. Absolutely sooner or later print a great deal of money, which is fantastic for Bitcoin. And regardless of how long this process takes, which is anyone's guess, the money supply is again far more than the US, it is worldwide.
Move over to the EU, right? I don't know if the Greens are going to come on side with the ruling parties in Germany to do this, constitutional free to allow them to print as much money as possible to build weapons and rebuild their army. But if they don't do it this way, they'll do it another way. The sentiment is there. Europe wants to rearm, ostensibly to fight Russia, but they just want to spend more money at the end of the day. And so if it doesn't happen now, it'll happen later. They want to reflate. It might not happen in the next week to save your leveraged long position in whatever you own, but that's coming at least within the next 2 to 3 years. China is just waiting. They're going to have some sort of agreement with the US and the rest of the world on how they want to reshape the global economy. Could be good, it could be bad. I don't know what it is. But once that agreement or, fuck you, we're just going to go our separate ways, whatever that is, they're going to reflate as well. So they're waiting in the sidelines. And then you have Japan, where the BOJ is trying to raise rates. We'll see if they get there or not. But at the end of the day, they're not trying to add more liquidity into the system. So you have the four major blocks, either trying a bit of austerity to clean up the dead wood, or in the process of reflating their economies. And we're in this period where we expected all this, policy goodness and, Trump's going to do this and do that. And you might end up doing these things, but at the end of the day, it was liquidity negative. And so now we're seeing the markets finally react to that. I think in the, third, fourth quarter of this year, through 2028, we're going to have a massive money printing situation, right? America first, my nation first is inflationary. I need to rebuild every single part of my supply chain within my country to give jobs to people because they're losing them to robotics and AI, and to have resiliency in my defense space. That's massively inflationary. There's not enough private capital to fund it. They're going to print the money. And then you have essentially a declining population and this sort of robotics AI thing. How that plays out, I don't know, but politicians need votes. And so they're going to print money to make sure that people feel okay. While the economic system, and maybe whatever humanity is in and of itself, changes as well. Again, massively amounts of money printed. And then you have to service all the debt that they took off from COVID into the present. The US pretty much doubled the debt in existence, and every other country printed money as well. So again, this is a short-term pain. We're clearing out the dead wood. We had a great run from 20,000 to 110 on Bitcoin, essentially, FTX lows until, Trump coin. And now we're having a 30% correction. It's pretty normal for a bull market. So I think, yes, people might have had a little bit too much leverage. Maybe they bought too many coins. But I think we're going to clear out all that dead wood, and I still believe that we could be 250,000 Bitcoin by the end of the year. Does that mean that the particular coin you own is going to be 100x higher? Probably not, because people are getting a little bit more discerning in the type of things that they own. But at least from Bitcoin perspective and the overall market capitalization of crypto, I think we're going to be much higher by the end of the year than we are today.
Like always, appreciate you. See you tomorrow.